Hey up everyone! So today's movie I'm talking about from the Cannes Film Festival is another highly anticipated film in the lineup. It is the long-awaited, most recent film from Francis Ford Coppola called Megalopolis, which he has written, directed, and produced all by himself, as I'm sure so many of you are already aware of this. This has been a passion project of Francis Ford Coppola's for like over 40 years. He had the idea, the script written for it like decades ago. He shelved it because he couldn't get investors to invest in it. And so later on he just decided, you know what, I'm gonna put my own money into this, I'm gonna finance it, and I'm just gonna make it now. I read somewhere that he actually had to sell off a part of his wine fortune in order to finance this film. And I think the end budget for this movie was around about $120 million. Yeah, it's been on the back burner for a while, this project, and it's finally here. I was one of the first people to watch this film at the Cannes Film Festival a few days ago, and this movie has undoubtedly become the talk of the festival, for good and for bad. Everybody has an opinion on this movie. Honestly, you only need to look at the letterboxd curve on this movie to see how divided people are on this film, okay? The curve on Letterboxd looks like the skyline in Megalopolis itself. So I'm gonna give you my thoughts on it now. Whilst this is technically a review, I'm not gonna be going into too much detail about the plot because honestly, I'm not even sure if I can quite coherently explain to you what the plot is actually about. I've had a few days to digest this film and I still don't quite understand what I watched. So yeah, I'm gonna let someone much smarter than me try and explain the plot to you, and I'm just gonna tell you how this movie made me feel. I was happy to find out that other people found this movie just as confusing as I did, but after discussing with other journalists, I feel like the general consensus about what the movie is about is that this is sort of Francis Ford Coppola's view on America, capitalism, New Rome, time, and dreams, okay? There's a lot of different ideas in the mixing pot. It feels like 5 movies worth of ideas all blended into one. But because Francis Ford Coppola financed this film himself, he had full creative control on this movie. And so what we are watching in Megalopolis is the film that he wanted to make 40 years ago, okay? This is what he envisioned, apparently. And if he himself is happy with it, that's something. But as a viewer, I was like, this movie cost $120 million to make, and this is what he wanted to make? This? But I will say, I do have to admire Francis Ford Coppola for, making the movie that he wanted to make. I don't think this movie is going to be palatable to the masses. I think this is a movie that he made for himself. And part of me really respects that. And I do admire that he is taking some really big swings in this film, okay? He is not playing it safe by any means. I have to give him credit for originality, ambition, and being bold and brave enough to take such gigantic swings, even if a lot of it misses. But yeah, that's pretty much all that I can say about this film that's positive. The story itself is so broad and so incoherent. The characters in this weren't compelling or interesting. None of the performances in this are spectacular, and it feels like none of the actors actually got any direction from Francis Ford Coppola. They all just kind of did their own thing in it, because you've got Nathalie Emmanuelle, who's taking it really seriously, and then you've got like Adam Driver, who is kind of on board for the madness and throws himself into some of the more experimental sequences, but I do think he could have taken it a lot further with the madness stuff. And then you've got other people like Shia LaBeouf and Aubrey Plaza playing more oddball characters, and they bring a lot of weird, quirky, eccentric energy to the film. Shia LaBeouf's character, Claudio, feels like a cartoon character in places, but you can tell he's having fun, and it is a performance you can enjoy watching in a kind of like guilty pleasure, Jared Leto in House of Gucci kind of way. I'd say the actor who walks away from this the most unscathed is probably Aubrey Plaza, and that's just because she's known for being weird already, like that's kind of her brand, and she is sort of bringing that to the table in this movie. That's her shtick, and it kind of does work, and I'm so here for all the WoW Platinum memes that are sure to follow. There's one scene which involves a crossbow, and that's all I'm gonna say because I don't want to spoil it to you, and this scene was so campy. And had the film been more like the tone of this scene itself, I probably would have had more fun with this movie because it was absolutely ridiculous what I was watching on the screen. But yeah, it's just like one tone in a film full of so many different tones. Like there's no consistency with the tone throughout this film, even from scene to scene. The dialogue in this film is so corny as well, and honestly, some of the takes in this movie kind of felt like the actors were just doing a rehearsal, like they were just reciting their lines rather than, metabolizing them with any sort of meaning or subtext behind them. So yeah, it kind of just felt like Francis Ford Coppola was rolling the camera during rehearsal and they didn't know it was filming. But it could also just be that the actors themselves were so lost in how vast and out there and weird the script is that they didn't actually know what they were trying to say. Like they weren't giving any direction to try and sell it. So they were just saying it as safely as they possibly could. And it just comes across very stilted in a few places. When it comes to the crafts and the tech side of this film, I will say the set design was impressive in a few scenes, but sometimes the sets looked almost too clean. They didn't feel lived in. They actually kind of looked like sets on a soundstage. The visual effects in this film, my God, like the word again is inconsistent, because sometimes they looked okay and then other times some of the imagery looked like it had been generated by AI. But yeah, when you actually see the city of Megalopolis that Adam Driver's character is building, it's like pepper spray to the eyes. The word I kept coming back to when I was talking about this movie to other people was cheap. What can I say? It costs $120 million to make a movie look this cheap. Yeah, cheap visuals, cheap costumes, and the storytelling itself was kind of cheap. Like, it's one of those movies that thinks it's very profound and meaningful when actually it's not really saying anything at all. The note which Francis Ford Coppola chooses to end this film on is just so generic, bland, and vague. Also, there is something that I want to discuss, which is a big spoiler, and if you don't want it spoiled for you, just turn the video off after I've given my score for it. Some of you are probably wondering, does it have any Oscars chances? God, I can't even say that with a straight face. No, this is adamantly not an Oscars contender. Like, no sir, no ma'am. There is nothing exceptional about anything in this film because everything feels so inconsistent. The sets, the costumes, the music, the visual effects, even the performances don't all feel like they belong in the same movie. Even the cinematography, which I actually thought had its moments where it was really beautiful, in other scenes, it was just like, not so much, I spoke too soon. Yeah, let's not waste time or breath arguing that it might get some Oscars attention, because it's not going to. So let's ask them 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch this again? I have no desire to watch this film again, but I am glad that I have watched it, and in Cannes as well. Like, this movie certainly was an experience, and I have enjoyed the discourse after we saw the film together. But unless this film somehow over the decades garners a reputation of it being sort of like a misunderstood masterpiece, kind of like Francis Ford Coppola's film Apocalypse Now, which wasn't liked at the start, but then grew to be, one of the most celebrated films of all time, then I don't feel like I'll ever come back to Megalopolis. And that's the thing with this movie, it's not bad to the point where it's unwatchable. I do think you will get something from watching it, but it's also not it's so bad it's actually kind of good, one of those types of movies either. So much of this movie went over my head, okay? I'm just gonna say this movie isn't for me. I'm sure some people will really love it, but yeah, I have no desire to watch this again. Question number 2, do I recommend it for you guys? Oi, you know what? Even though I don't like this film, I do kind of want to encourage people to go check it out. Like, if you have a slight interest or curiosity of checking this movie out, I do think you should go watch it, just because it is such a unique experience, okay? There's not anything quite like it. Like, this film throws so much at the wall, and not much of it sticks, but there were a few scenes, like the dominatrix scene and that crossbow scene that I mentioned, which really did make me laugh in a sort of like, what the fuck am I watching kind of way. So yeah, when it comes to me recommending it, I would say if you do have some curiosity for this film, then yeah, do go check it out. But yeah, most people are probably not gonna like this, so I don't really recommend it. And third question, what score do I give it out of 10? Again, with Megalopolis, I don't hate this movie, but I just didn't like it. I left this film feeling discombobulated and bewildered by it. It's truly baffling how spectacularly hard it falls, given the money that was behind it, and the director of the Godfather movies making it. It's kind of insane to think that it is this awful. Oh my god, I'm actually struggling here. What score do I give it out of 10? Because I do admire the ambition of the project, and I'm happy he got to make the film he wanted, and even though I didn't really like the movie, there's bits of it where I'm like, okay, at least he's taking some risks and it's original and unique and it's so much better than watching the same generic cookie cutter like movies that we get. So I'm gonna give Megalopolis a score of 2.5 out of 10, which I know seems really, really harsh, but yeah, this is just how I feel. It's my truth. All right, so if you don't want spoilers, now's your time to leave. Okay, bye. So the thing that I want to discuss in this film is that it is so experimental to the point that, you know, basically any embellishment that you can think of for Francis Ford Coppola, he puts in this movie. Like, the editing is outrageous. Like, lots of split screens, lots of like really interesting dynamic camera work. And yeah, but the thing that everyone was sort of like talking about afterwards is that he's done something to really break the fourth wall. And I'm not just talking about actors like breaking the fourth wall looking at the camera. During mid-movie, basically, someone came out with a microphone onto the stage and started having a conversation with Adam Driver's character on the screen as the movie was still playing. And this was like a what the fuck moment. Like, part of me is like impressed, like having the balls and the audacity and the gumption to like do something like that and do it in Cannes, because you gotta wonder if this film is getting distributed across the world, how are they gonna do that? They're gonna have like ushers in movie theaters come out and like talk to Adam Driver? Like, that wasn't in the job description, I'm sure. But yeah, the fact that that happened, you know, people were just like, what is going on? Part of me was in awe of that, like for actually having the balls to do that. So yes, that was just something that I wanted to mention, and I'm curious to see if it's going to follow through with its distribution across the world. So yeah, that's the spoiler talk. I felt like it needed to be discussed because that's never happened to me in a screening before, and I did want to talk about it. But as always, guys, it is just one book's opinion. I would love to hear from you. Are you excited about Megalopolis? Are you curious about it even more now that you've seen the first reactions to it? Have you seen it? If you have, what did you make of this movie? Whatever you have to say, do let me know in that comment section down below. If you have enjoyed the video, help me out with a little thumbs up button. Please do help me reach my end of year goal of getting to 10,000 subscribers by clicking the subscribe button. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, the Oscars, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Hearfield, and I'll see you next time.